Hi everyone, I'm Kirsten with Dakota County, and today we're joined by Pat, who's going to talk about how to repair a vacuum. Before we hear from Pat, I wanted to give a quick overview of our Fixi Clinic program. Fixi Clinics offer free guided assistance from volunteers with the skills to troubleshoot, diagnose, and repair your small household appliances, mobile devices, electronics, clothing, and more. Fixi Clinics teach basic repair skills, build community, and keep the number of repairable items out of the trash. Like our in-person events, we hope that these videos will inspire and empower you to repair your items at home. Just give it a try. Now, without further introduction, let's hear from Pat.
Hi, so today we're going to talk about vacuum cleaners. So the first thing you always want to start with is find the manual. The manual is going to have all the information you need about what to look for, how to empty it, what the filters look like, and some troubleshooting steps. So with that, let's start looking into a couple of vacuum cleaners we have here. So this particular one is a canister style. So one thing you always want to remember on any vacuum is you need to empty it from time to time. I know that's one of those things that a lot of people forget to do, but that's the first thing you want to check for. Open it up and look inside and make sure that it is empty. Literally, they will sometimes fill up to the top. This one is sticking on me a little. There we go. We'll pull it out, and this one is currently empty. But if it was full right up to the top, that might be your problem right there. This style here is going to have a dustbin style. So we're going to pull this thing out. There we get the tank out, and then there's a little button here that opens the bottom door and lets it drop out. And you can see there's actually a fill line there. So if you're up above near that fill line, you definitely want to get it emptied out. And it looks like there's another little bit of dust collected inside here. So let's see how that comes apart. Ah, yes. See there? And there's more dust in there. It's a bunch of hair and crud. We're going to pick that out and throw it out. So now we've cleared that part out. And if you notice, there's a little screen here. This screen is nice and clear. You look up from the bottom, same thing, nice and clear. If it's not nice and clear, you'd want to clean that out, because that could definitely clog things up. Most vacuums have a filter of some sort, and they over time will get clogged up, and you need to fill them out or clean them out. Let's see here. This one says, oh yeah, look at that. There would definitely be a problem there. Get rid of all that dust. This one is foam rubber. Get all the dust. You might even want to do this outside if you've got a lot of it. This one probably hadn't been cleaned, maybe never. So what I would do with this style after getting all the hair and dust out is take it over to the sink and clean it out. I'm going to put that back, and that goes inside here. And what's inside here? Oh yeah, look, there's another filter in there. So I'm going to clean this one out too. So that goes back in here. This guy goes back in here. And let's see, how did that go back in here? There we go. And let's see here. This looks like there might be possibly another filter. Yep, there's got another filter here. And this one looks like a Hepa filter. And this is where you'd want to look at your manual, because Hepa filters are generally designed not to be washed out. They're generally designed to just be brushed off. And if I'm looking up, I'm trying to see if I could see any light through it, and I can't. So I don't happen to have a brush, but I would brush this one early and whack it again, take it outside, and this might become a replacement item if it gets too clogged up. Those other ones, though, they were definitely designed to be cleaned. So this particular vacuum had 3 different filters that need to be kept clean. Now let's take a look at this guy over here. Again, we already talked about it's empty, so we're good there, but there is a filter here. And let's see how this one comes. Okay, this looks like a brand new filter. It's nice and white, and this was actually brought in by somebody on the staff here, and they said they did buy a new filter on this one. So we're probably good on this one. It's nice and white, but at one time it was probably pretty bad. This type of vacuum, it looks like a wet or dry. So I got the little ball there. When the tank gets full of water, it goes up and then shuts off the suction so that the motor doesn't suck up the water. It just stops going. So when you hear it, the sound of the suction changing, you know that the ball is kicked in and it's time to empty the tank of the water. Because again, this is a wet or dry vacuum. Okay. Now this one also has a hose, and that's another area that can get clogged up. And that's a little trickier to undo. If you've got a long snake, which is most people aren't going to have, but if there's a big wad of hair jammed in there, that can make a big difference. And I was told that that appears to be the problem, that it doesn't have any suction. So what we can do here is we'll plug this in and we'll turn it on without the hose and see what kind of suction we get. Plenty of suction there. So now we'll put the, in fact I can look right in there and it looks like there might be something right there. Now let's put this on anyway just to see what the difference is. Hardly anything. So that definitely confirms that there's something in the length of this hose. Now the trick is how to get that something out of there. Now that it's warm out, what I would probably do is take it outside with the garden hose and just start blasting away at it. If you're not seeing any water coming out the other end, there's definitely something in there that's clogging it up. It looks like there's something right here in the end. Now there's a cap of some kind on here that's designed to deflect the water and everything down. If we can get, oh yeah, I could feel something right there. Maybe even pull it out with my finger. I'm lucky here. You know, there's stuff there. There's a piece of paper. Yeah, there's what the problem is, right here. Oh yeah, there's some Home Depot receipt. Let's see if that was all it was. Better. Still not a lot of suction, but better than it was before. And that obviously would, oh look, there's even more stuff that came out. Yeah, that one piece of paper probably blocked pretty much everything that the thing has been trying to suck up for a while. So let's try it again. Getting better. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just let it suck for a little bit like this. That'll hopefully pull whatever's in there up towards the end there, and maybe it'll come out like the last batch did. There's nothing else there that came up. I would still recommend taking this outside and blast it with the garden hose, because after time, the inside gets clogged up, and I think that's probably we got the majority of it, but it still could use a little more suction, but it's definitely better than it was before. All right, and this of course can be kind of messy because we're dealing with dust and dirt. So let's go back to this guy, and this one has a brush on it. And I think when we looked earlier, the brush did not appear to be turning, which may have been why they sent it back. So let's plug this in and see what we can see here. Where's the power button? Yeah, the brush isn't turning. All right, so it looks like the other problem is the brush isn't spinning. So this one we're going to probably need to take the base apart. So we're going to take the bottom off here, and there's two little locks that are built right into it, and they've got a symbol of lock and unlock. So we just turn these to unlock, and that should mean that this base comes off. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's coming from the suction hose into this cavity here. We'll need to take out a few more screws to get to the brush. So these are Phillips screws, and this is where having the manual would come in handy, because it might tell you how to do some of this rather than figuring it out as we go. Now, there's a lot of screws. You don't want to take out anything you don't need to, so you got to kind of look and see what's holding what. So these little rollers on the front were hiding yet another screw that was keeping me from getting it apart. Yeah, now it's going to come apart up here. Oh yeah, definitely. That's what the problem there was. So the old hidden screw trick. That's why you don't want to just start ripping until when something doesn't pull apart the way it should, that usually means there's another screw somewhere. Oftentimes I'll put it under a label. So if you see a label in an area that doesn't seem to want to come apart, pull the label off and see if there's a screw hiding under it. Yeah, so now we can take that off. All right. This switch doesn't seem to be switching. And if that's the problem, that could be why it's not engaging applying power to the motor, which then turns the belt. Because the belt is intact and it's nice and tight. So the ultimate problem is the motor is not spinning. It's just now figuring out why gets to be the trick. So this belt has got a lot of, this roller's got a lot of hair in it, which doesn't help matters any. But here's the belt. So if you did need to replace the belt, you'd take the roller out and then just put the belt around the motor and the other end around the spool. This particular one has got teeth on the belt, which is nice. A lot of belts, they're just a smooth surface, and what can happen is they'll get really shiny and they don't have the friction to grab anymore. So as the belts dry out, they just don't do the job they used to need to do. So in those cases, you probably could replace the belt. If you can see the motor spinning, it just doesn't spin very well. Check that. There's hair on here, but it's not a huge amount. I think it's a problem with the motor, the circuit board, or this little switch here, because this switch does not appear to be engaging. And I suspect that is the problem, because it's just not engaging. So that would mean a replacement of the switch is probably the next step. What we could do is take this apart. Let's see here. And of course, whenever you take something apart, pay attention to what you're doing, because you're going to have to put it back together later. So it's probably a bad switch. And there is a part number on it. It's something you could look up and probably find it on Amazon and replace it. It looks like it's soldered on, so you need a soldering iron. But that, if I was going to go on further on this, that's what I would do. So we have another vacuum here. This is a cordless vacuum cleaner. So it means it's got batteries on board here. And there's a little stand here that you plug it into, and there's little metal clips that charge up the internal battery. But first, before we dig into that, let's take a look at the tank for this one. Same thing. You got to look and make sure that your tank is not full. And this one also is going to have a filter that can get clogged up. You can see that there's a lot of dust coming off of here. I would probably take all this over to to your sink. I would let these dry before I put them back together. You don't want to put wet filters back in the vacuum cleaner because then they're going to get moldy. And all right. So it's been plugged in here before, so we're going to turn it on and nothing happens. So like I said earlier, this is a battery-powered unit, so it has to be charged, obviously, for it to work. So the first question that we want to ask is the battery getting charged? So we can look up here. There's two metal contactors there. They're nice and clean. There's two metal contactors here. They're also nice and clean. When you lock it in there, it looks like it's going to be able to take a charge. Now, to charge it, though, it's going to have this little power supply built into it. Some people call it a wall wart. These can fail. And if this thing fails, then there's no voltage going to your battery. So what we'll want to do is test that to see if it's getting power coming off of it. Now, for that, you'll need a multimeter. A multimeter just means that it's a voltmeter, an ohm meter, and a couple different meters built into one. You can pick these up at Home Depot or Menards for less than 10 bucks. It's a good thing to have around your house. And of course, it'll come with a manual to tell you how to use it. So let's take a look and see if we're getting power coming off of this unit. So let's check and see what it is. It says it has an output of 15 volts. And it doesn't say DC, but it has a straight line with little dotted lines underneath it. That means it's DC, direct current. So we'll plug it in, and it's hardwired. Well, there's actually a connector here as well. And so we'll check it. We'll check the voltage. So I'm going to put my voltmeter on DC volts. And how much did I say that was? I said it's 15 volts. So I'm going to set this to 20 volts DC and see if we're getting voltage coming out of it. I'm going to put the red pin, because the center is usually positive. It doesn't matter if it's not, but I'll put this so you can take a look at it here. And we are getting up, it's actually over 20 volts because it cleared out. 20.9 volts. So we know that this part is working, and we know we've got voltage up to here. So then we're going to plug this back in, and we'll do the same thing on these pins here to make sure we're getting the voltage up to here, and we are. So what that's telling us is the power supply is good, it's getting voltage, getting in here, but nothing's happening. Well, anybody who has a cell phone knows that the batteries don't last forever. They will eventually just not hold a charge anymore. And it's especially possible with these types of deals because when you put it in here, it's constantly charging it, which really isn't good for rechargeable batteries. They shouldn't have a charge on them all the time. Ideally, what you would do is you'd charge this thing up and then unplug it, and then let the battery run down, and then when you're done, when it doesn't work anymore, then plug it back in again. And then get it charged up, and then go back the next day and unplug it. That keeps the batteries from being constantly have a charge on them. The other thing with them is they do need to be used from time to time. Batteries don't like to just sit there with a full charge on them and not get used. It's best after you fully charge it to use it right away, because leaving rechargeable batteries with a full charge is not good for them either. All these things will reduce their life. So I suspect that's what's happened with this unit. Its batteries are just plain shot. Now we could take it apart and we could find the battery pack in there, and we could look it up and find a replacement battery pack. It's probably got a little connector on there. But they often charge a lot for the replacement batteries. I have devices where you buy a replacement battery, it costs more than the device did to begin with. So at that point, it's kind of a judgment call as to whether you want to do it or not. But we could take this apart and take a look. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention earlier is whenever you're working on something that's got a plug, you definitely want to unplug it before you start taking it apart. This is battery operated, so it's not nearly as critical. So we're going to look up and see what a replacement battery for it costs. And you might get lucky. It might just be sometimes they'll have 2 or 3 AA batteries that they're just wrapped together and they're essentially off the shelf. Take this out of there. Yeah, there's more batteries under there, or excuse me, more screws under here. And again, we're going to notice the screws as they come out because different lengths are in different places. So it's a battery pack of a bunch of AA batteries. So if you're, and we said we looked that up, and what did we say the cost was? $30. $30. What they really are is just simply AA batteries that have been put together in a pack with little tabs in between. So this is one of those cases where you have to decide if it's worth the time and money to buy replacement batteries or replace the whole vacuum. I am pretty confident the problem is the batteries are just shot because of being charged all the time. They just wear out over time. Anybody who's got a cell phone knows that after a while it just doesn't hold charge and you need to replace the batteries, or most people just trade it in and get a new phone. So to summarize, the tools that you would need when working on a vacuum cleaner in most cases are going to be just common screwdrivers, straight blade. Phillips screwdrivers come in different tip sizes, and it sometimes makes a difference. Sometimes you can get away with using a small one on a big one or a big one on a small one, but not always. Sometimes the screws are recessed or they're too big, so it's helped to have a couple different sizes of all your screwdrivers. Having a set of scissors to cut out the hair that's wrapped around the rollers and what have you is another thing that's real handy. And then, as I mentioned earlier, a multimeter, which you can get relatively cheaply at the local hardware store or Home Depot or what have you. And they come with a manual so you can use them. And you can even check high voltage. You want to be somewhat careful if you're not comfortable with doing that kind of stuff. So to summarize, when you're working on a vacuum, the first thing you want to do is look at the manual. The manual's going to tell you, the common things to look for. It's going to have pictures of where all the filters are. As we saw in that one vacuum, it had multiple filters in multiple different places. The manual should also tell you if the filters can be cleaned by washing them in the sink or whether they should not be washed and should just be cleaned out. If you have an air compressor in your garage, awesome, just blast it out. You want to, of course, blast the opposite direction from where the air gets sucked in, so you're pushing the dirt that collects out rather than pulling it or pushing it into the filter even further. So before you would do that, think about, okay, the air comes in here, so I should blow from the other direction. Of course, the first thing you always check for is make sure that the tank or the bag or whatever the case may be is not full, because when they get full, they don't suck very well. If you've got the kind of vacuum with the big long hose, things can get stuck in the hose, as we saw with that one canister vacuum. See if you can see anything jammed in there. We were lucky on this one. I could see it jammed in there. I could get it out. We let it suck up a little bit more, and we got out even more stuff. And then we would take it outside and blast it with a hose just to make sure we get the last of the stuff out of there. And that's about it. You do want to, of course, look at videos if you're not finding what you need in the manual. Again, preferably you get the manual or the videos that came from the manufacturer, because we know that they're going to tell you what the story is, as opposed to the one made by some guy who may or may not know what he's doing, and the information in there may or may not be accurate. So you've got to kind of weigh that out. As I mentioned before, watch multiple videos, and if they all look like they know what they're doing and they're all showing you the same thing, you're probably pretty confident that the information you're getting is good. So, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for more.
Well, that's a wrap. To learn more about what we talked about today, feel free to check out the video description for additional links and resources. To learn more about our Fixi Clinic program, you can visit our website, www.dakotacounty.us, search for Fixi Clinic, and keep an eye out for some more videos coming your way. We hope to release a few more. And thank you so much for joining us, Pat, and thank you for watching. Have a great day.